Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. It's been a while, obviously, been a week. I was really sick, so I was taking the time to rest and relax, and I'm back with another video. Last time, we left off with Corsica freed from German rule. We're now on to Road Building Through the New Guinea Jungle, October 1943. Successes in New Guinea. By early October, the Japanese were in full retreat up the Ramau Valley in the north of New Guinea. Allied control of Allied bases in this, of air bases, my bad, not Allied bases, of air bases in this area constituted a further threat to Japanese sea communications, with the important base of Rabaul, which was being continually harassed by the Allies from the air. Left, so this picture right here, troops supervised by military engineers harnessing a river along which a new road is being built. And then above, a bridge is being built in the South Pacific while a machine gunner keeps watch for Japanese patrol and snipers. So we can see the machine gunner right there. Keep an eye out. Yeah, basically moving the jungle they'd have to do for a lot of these countries because they're not as developed over in the Pacific at this time. There's still some that are not quite. But the Allies do crazy amounts of engineering feats to basically change this into as not like completely modernized or anything, but in a place where they are more able to move through the jungle easily. Successes in the war against U-boats. October 15th, 1943. Navy flyers bag 3 submarines. In the picture at the left, the injured officers of a German submarine come aboard the escort carrier from which the nemesis of his vessel took off. While at the bottom, let's see here, left, right here, the commanding officer of the submarine chats with the officers of the carrier. And in the lower picture, so this one here, German prisoners march along besides their captain to a prison of war camp on the Atlantic seaboard, flying their Grumman Avenger torpedo bomber from flying their Grumman Avenger torpedo bomber from the flight deck of one of the Navy's escort carriers. The crew depth bombed 3 German submarines in 4 days in the battle to keep the Atlantic open. How well the Allies were succeeding in this fight was revealed in a joint statement by President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill, revealing that in the 6 months of 1943, the number of ships sunk per U-boat operating was only half in the last 6 months of 1942, and only a quarter of that in the first half of 1942. So yeah, they're basically saying, we've obliterated the enemy's submarine forces. They only have like a quarter of what they started in the year previously. So it obviously they are very much showing, hey, we are destroying the enemy. A rain of bomb falls on France. October 15th, 1943. Bad news for the Nazis. 26 100-pound bombs are seen in midair just after being released from a B-26 Marauder medium bomber of the U.S. Army 9th Air Force. They're headed for a German installation in France. Night after night, the German-controlled territory was subjected to terrific bombings by planes of American and Royal Air Forces in an effort to soften up the country and enemy troops in preparation for the forthcoming invasion. In addition to defense posts, heavy damage was inflicted upon the enemy airplane factories throughout the occupied countries and Germany. Yeah, so they're softening up France for the invasion next year at Normandy there. And they are making sure to cripple any enemy aircraft so that a aerial response to the invasion or just aerial response to anywhere on any of the fronts is limited compared to what it could be. Two-way traffic at Salerno. October 1943. On the beachheads. U.S. troops center march over a landing mat road on the beach at Salerno as a wounded GI is carried on a litter towards the shore for evacuation to a base hospital. The fighting was very bloody in this area, but the courage and determination of the men of the 5th Army who stood up under the fiercest fighting of the entire Tunisian, Sicily, Italian campaign prevailed, and the tide of battle eventually turned, aided by the brilliant march of the British 8th Army up the east coast, which kept the Germans busy on both ends of the battle line. Yeah, the fighting in Italy is very, very slow. It picks up right at the beginning, and they push the enemy quite fast, but then it slows to a grinding halt almost. And it'll stay that way for quite a while. The Germans have a decent defense in Italy. It's definitely one of their easier places to defend compared to the Eastern Front or later the Western Front that is open in France. Because there's not as much land to cover, so you don't need technically as many troops as you do on, let's say, the Eastern Front. The Russians push on by land and air. October 1943. Russian guns in action. In the picture, a Russian gun shells the retreating Germans in the Dnieper River area of the Red Army's fall offensive to free their homeland gained momentum. Yeah, we can see a lot of smoke, obviously, and the Germans are being bombed. And yeah, the Soviets, they crushed the Germans. There is no more real resistance that is being put up. The Germans are trying their best to slow them down, but it is one of those, it is an inevitable fall. They are going to eventually fail. There's nothing they can do at this point. Down over Berlin. An armed German soldier stands guard on the wreckage of a bomber of the Soviet Air Force, which was brought down during a raid over the German capital. Yeah, they're probably they probably showed this off to the people, saying, look, we're bringing them down. They will not bomb us forever. But they won't have the best defense for much longer here. But yeah, it is interesting, though, to think that a Soviet bomber got all the way to Berlin. It's not super far in the grand scheme of things, but for all the stuff that it has to go through to get to it, it is kind of interesting that it was able to make it that far. The British enter Cancello. October 18, 1943. A stronghold falls to the Allies. Bending low and with their guns ready for instant use, British infantrymen dash across a blasted railway bridge over the Volturno River to enter Cancello, which, in the bottom picture, an Italian cyclist nonchalantly hitches onto the back of a British 25-pounder as the mobile column passes a group of refugees returning from the hills to their homes. So yeah, you can see up here, obviously, the men getting crouched, ready to cross that bridge, moving as fast as they can to get across, doing their best to make them smaller, make themselves harder hitting targets. And yeah, it's kind of funny just to think like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hitch a ride. Just going to go back home. Thanks for the ride, fellows. But yeah, the Italian people have a very different perspective on this war. And you start to understand why maybe the Italians also didn't have as an effective force. Maybe they just didn't want to fight. That's a very likely scenario. But with that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you, and I'm glad to be back.